Hello! Welcome to the Reckless Hope Show. I'm your host, Jordan Blake Parker of the Reckless Saints of Nowhere. This is my distinguished guest, the Reverend Todd Sloggett.
The Reverend.
The Reverend.
I like the.
Yeah, I had to emphasize the. He is not. You're not an Oklahoman.
I live in Oklahoma. I'm not from Oklahoma. No, that's two totally different things.
He wants to make that perfectly clear. He's not born in Oklahoma, but he currently resides in Oklahoma.
There you go.
I tried to get an Oklahoma flag in the shot, but it was just too much. There was too much other stuff going on. Hey, welcome to the new and improved Reckless Hope Show. We're glad that you're here with us tonight. My guest, the Reverend Sloggett, we've got here to tackle your tough questions on addiction. And really, guys, I'm not saying this because he's a close personal friend and mentor, because it happens to be the truth. There is nobody better to answer these questions that you guys have been so awesome to email to us and kind of take on this this hard task, because addiction is something it's very unique because it's going on all over the world. Everyone is addicted. I forget the actual stats. I don't forget them, but they're astronomical about the consumption that Americans have on pills and just prescriptions, and then on top of it, heroin use and cocaine use and all that continues to climb. So
Right.
it's not, none of that's going away. And yet there's not anyone having actual conversations about addiction. And so you're active in how many states? Let's do this first. Let's kind of introduce the people to who you are. That those that, if you don't know, you've been living under a rock, or you the Reverend here. You tell them a little bit. You run Holiness Missions to America, which is your ministry.
I'm the president and founder of HMA Ministries, formerly known as Holiness Missions to America. We fly under an AKA now, HMA Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
We have 63 ministry platforms around the world as of last week. We just added our 63rd platform. We have over 700 ministry locations in 18 states and 5 countries. Our drug addiction program that we'll talk about a little bit tonight is actually, as far as I know, active in at least 49 states and 3 countries. I don't know about Hawaii necessarily. But that's kind of a little bit of that.
So that's what the Reverend does, and we met. It's been a few years ago now. We met. It was I spoke at an event in Neosho, Missouri. He was the mayor back then. He wasn't the mayor, Ben Baker.
Yeah.
But now he's state representative of Missouri, Ben Baker. So he's been
I call him Governor Ben.
It's just a matter of time. It is going to. It's just a matter of time. I spoke there. He heard me speak, and then he immediately came to me afterwards. Me and my wife, his wife Naomi, and they said, "You've got to meet this guy named Todd Sloggett. Have you ever heard of him?" And we're like, no, I've absolutely never heard of him. So they introduced me to him. It was like a week later. We were flying to California. You were preaching at a revival,
And at the Bible Holiness there in the ocean.
right?
Yeah.
And then you were going somewhere else too. So we kind of just crossed at the end there. And the Reverend was kind enough to shake our hand and meet with us, and he said, "Call me when you're back." He said, "You call me in a week, and we'll talk to you, and we'll see what your guys are all about." And so I took that week and just Googled everything I could find on the Reverend Todd Sloggett, which is a ton of stuff. He's been very active in the community for a long time. And what I found was when I first started Reckless, I really thought our idea was radical, to take addicts from everywhere, anywhere we could get them, and just walk them through the process of addiction and stop letting them go to 30-day programs that didn't work, and just pouring all of our resources into transporting them, feeding them, clothing them, whatever. I really thought that was a new concept. And what I found from the Google search is that the Reverend had been doing it for about 22 years at that point, or 20?
Maybe about 20 years at that point. But we've known each other for about 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he'd been doing it solid for 20 years, not just in Tulsa or in Oklahoma, but at that point 14, 15, 16 different states, right? I mean, you were...
Yeah.
And so we get back from California, and I call him, and he says, he's very kind if you don't know him. He's like, how can I help you, man? He's like, I want to help. How can I help what you guys are doing? And I was just fangirled out by that point. I was like, I want to help what you're doing. Are you kidding me? Can we meet with you? And so he was kind enough to meet with us. Now that started it. That's kind of where it started.
Yeah.
And we had that initial meeting,
Right.
and then I just didn't go away, I think, for what? It was 3 months, 2 or 3 months?
Yeah, a couple months at least.
So I would come up to every chance I could get. I would come up and just hang out, and he would just pour into me about addiction. And you even when we set up that Reckless hotline, you took you walked me through some calls. You were kind enough to kind of walk me through kind of addiction and his experience. So that's how I met the Reverend. That's what brings him here today, to kind of give you a backstory there. So we're going to start this off with tackling some really tough things that has been on my mind and on Reverend's, he's dealt with it a million times throughout his ministry and his life. One of the things that a lot of people ask us is, we have a lot of enemies, Recklesses. We have a lot of people that love us. We have a great support team. We have a great support staff. But I would say within the churches, because we operate in those circles, a lot. We try to help there. Sometimes the churches don't like Reckless. We're very, very controversial.
Sure.
Like, and this is not new to you.
No, but not at all.
So why do you think that is? Why do you think what we are doing is so controversial? Because, and I'm being honest with you, you know this. When we first got started, I never thought the church would be the ones that had a problem with us.
Sure.
Because the cities love us. The cities will have us in. They'll say, "Wait a minute, you'll take our drug addicts,
Cities and schools.
Yes.
And, yeah, right.
You'll take the addicted, and we don't have to. You won't eat up our budget. You pay for it yourself." And it's like, but churches are always trying to want us to kind of conform to their. Are you Baptist? Are you Methodist? Are you right? And so we're dealing with that a lot. So what do you think that is that makes us controversial, like in and of itself? Why is it so hard for us to operate in those circles?
Sure.
The friction.
And I don't know if you remember, we had a lot of conversations way back when we started, and I was trying to pour stuff in you, because I could see you, I knew what you were doing, I could see where your heart was. I've done this all over the country. We get hundreds of ministries a month come to us wanting us to help them, work with them, and we can't work with all of them, so we're looking to cherry pick the ones we think that are going to have the best success.
Right.
I saw a lot of promise in you guys in the very beginning. I felt like the Spirit of the Lord would give me direction, that you guys were something to pour into. And if you remember, in the beginning, I told you that you were going to make one friend to 10 enemies,
right.
and that 70% of your enemies were going to come from the Christian world,
right.
the church-going world. And I knew when I said it, you just like, wrong. You're like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, what were you saying?
Yeah, you just don't want to believe that, though. You
Sure.
can't. I think we were chewed up. Yeah,
Yeah,
we couldn't believe that.
people have to understand. I love the church.
Right.
The church is Christ's body.
Right.
It's the organization that we exist to be a part of. It's what the Spirit of God flows through.
Right.
It's what the gospel is preached out of. It's the message of the church is the healing of the nations. The message of the church is salvation to the lost.
The gospel is what saved my life, what turned everything around.
Yes,
Yeah.
the message of the church is what the world needs. The problem is sometimes the church thinks the church is what the world needs. There's a fine line there, but it's very distinct in some ways.
Right.
The church establishment isn't what the world needs. The church's pure message is what the world needs. So I love the church. I'm for the church. I'm part of the church. So are you. You're very plugged into the local church.
Absolutely.
So are we. But at the same time, the church becomes its own establishment. And everybody's like, well, not my church. Really? I mean, do you go to a Nazarene church, a Baptist church, a Mormon church, Pentecostal church, Holiness church, community church? Which kind of church do you go to? If somebody asks you, what religion are you? A lot of times they're going to say, I'm Baptist.
Right.
Or I'm Seventh-day Adventist.
Right.
Or I'm Free Holiness, or whatever.
Right.
That's not what religion you are. Your religion is Christianity. There's just a handful of religions in the world, Buddhism, Muslim, Christians. But we start dividing it all up. When we divide it all up, we create fundamental situations that become the establishment. And, my establishment, I actually wore a suit and tie tonight on purpose.
Looks great.
Because I knew we'd get into some of this, and I want to see the contrast between
Yeah.
you and I. You could go to church dressed just like that at the church that you go to church, and I could go to church dressed just like this where I go to church, and then possibly if I showed up at your church on a Sunday morning dressed like this, it'd be like, oh, who does he think he is? Or if you showed up dressed exactly like that at my church, they might think, well, who does he think he is? So that's, when you're saying why are we having these problems, why are we having these frictions, is because you're following our blueprint.
Right, which we're going to talk about, yeah.
And our blueprint is a purely gospel pattern as much as we possibly can. Everything that the church has that's above and beyond purely the gospel pattern, you're going to cause a problem with them. And I've caused problems with them. And I try to make it right as best I can, but I can't bend over backwards and do cartwheels all the time for every denominational clique and thing and cultural and community and regional thing. I've got to, because I'm doing something a lot of the church isn't doing. You're doing something a lot of the church isn't doing. Now, all of that said, you do some extra things that are causing you problems with the church.
Right.
You and I have talked about this before.
Sure. Yes.
You can't take an institution like Christianity and show up with all your tattoos and your knuckles tattoos and all of your jewelry and your hat and reckless this and reckless that and think that these people are going to love me.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
So you need to understand that in advance. We've talked about this lots of times. That if you're going to show up being reckless and riding your motorcycles with your tattoos and your hat on backwards and your pants on sideways or however you do it, if you're going to do all of that and show up in the face of the church, you need to expect some friction. That's just what it is. What the church is
Which we
missing,
do try, but we try to minimize, because we're not about being rebellious. We're not about, oh, you wear long sleeves. We don't. Anytime we go to those churches or anytime we go to those communities, I'll put long sleeves on. It doesn't bother me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've done way better at it, and that's great.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
And I've noticed it.
Because the gospel's the point.
It's
not
about the gospel.
Yeah.
It's about unity and power and reaching the lost and all of that. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
What the church is missing a lot of times in this component, though, is something that I purposed to make sure I understood. When I first began to interact with you, I saw your heart.
Yeah.
I saw your intention.
Yeah.
I saw your understanding. I saw your willingness to learn. I saw your study habits, your prayer habits, and I felt like that's something we can work with. Because there's there's a ministry on every corner. There's a ministry of this, and ministry of that, and ministry of candle making, ministry of hat building, whatever. There's ministries of everything. And a lot of them they're just in it for themselves, or they're just in it to be approved of by their pastor, or in it for whatever. But I could see in you guys, and the church needs to understand, you don't almost kill yourself day in and day out and take a minimum wage and run your family ragged and push the limits to get people in programs and to get people off drugs and to get people saved for any other reason than you're doing it for the pureness of Christ in you.
Right.
So when I could see that, that's when I
Right.
had to start looking about. I didn't like the word reckless. You know that. We talked about that at the very beginning. And I have to watch you guys and look and see what you're doing and say, does that bother me because it's my personal pet peeve? Does that bother me because I care what people think about us? Does that bother me? Or does that bother me because it's crossing the Spirit of God in me? It's crossing the Word of God.
Or it's anti-biblical in some way.
Yeah,
right, rebellious,
exactly.
Right.
So the church really struggles with things, and some of it, I grant the church, especially the local bodies, they need to have some walls up.
Sure.
They need to have some things going on. So when they say, we don't that, or we push back against that, I'm fine with that. And you need to be fine with that.
Sure.
With just saying, hey, no problem, I don't need to be on your platform, I don't need to be on your billboard, I just want your addicts and your money and and whatever we need like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the church has to acknowledge that some things they're just against, just because they're against. It just makes them nervous, it makes them uncomfortable.
And on that point, I think one of the things that we come in contact with a lot is we have a ton of churches that love us and support us in every community. In fact, your church is great. Like your Bethany Holiness is phenomenal. And we went in dressed, we didn't know.
Amazing church.
So when I met Todd, I didn't know holiness, I didn't know long sleeves, I didn't know what that meant. We were kind of new to that. And we come in, and my wife is like the side of her head shaved. That was her haircut back then, and so I have all the ink, and I'm wearing, I think it was maybe I put on a collar shirt. I hope I did, I don't know. I was like, I don't
remember.
Probably not. And we walked into this church, and it's like, my wife is so perceptive, she's like, I'm the only person in here, wearing makeup and jeans, and she's like, everyone else, I was like, no, oh my goodness, you are. So I'm looking around, like, this is okay, all right. And she goes, news for you, you're the only one, in a shirt. The rest of them, and so I was like, oh my goodness. And they were like literally the nicest, most loving. That was the most welcome Reckless has ever been at a church. A little girl drew a picture for my wife that she still has to sit in the pew in front of us, and they like went out of their way to. It was like we hated to leave. I mean, anyway. I had to tell you that story. But one of the things I've noticed is, with all the churches that love us, there's this churches that outright we're too much for, and that's always going to be, that's obvious.
Sure.
And that's fine. That's always going to be okay. And I'm not saying they're even wrong. I'm just saying that's fine. But the one thing that got me was the churches that want to kind of work with us but change us.
Yes.
That want us to kind of fold in under their umbrella and say, we were approached by the big organization, you know, and they wanted to buy us and kind of, you know, stop us from working with other denominations. And then the other denomination did the exact same thing. They wanted to come and buy us, stop us from working with another denomination.
Right.
So that's my, you know, in your experience, what do you think stems from that? Because from where I'm looking at it, if the church was good at fixing the drug problem, no offense, but if the local church was good at that, they would be doing it.
Right.
Why does Reckless exist? Why should we look more like them to do that? Does that make sense, or operate more like them?
And go back to the other thought, and then I'll catch up here. You know, our problem, what a lot of people had with us in the beginning with HOA Ministries, was we were just pushing the envelope in a different way than you guys are. We were willing to talk about the problems in the local church. We were willing to talk about why we weren't reaching the drug addict, and talk about how to treat a prostitute different.
And then the contradictions in Scripture and life.
Yeah, and so that made us put us on the
public enemy number one.
You guys come along, and it's just your look and kind of the attitude that seems to go with it, and it's not a bad spirit by any means, but just
Sure.
you know, just even all of this, you know.
And we were really rough 4 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. And here's the issue though, and I know exactly what I am. I'm a punk kid from the streets of California, saved by grace. I do not say this out of arrogance or anything like that, but I'm giving you the facts. Okay?
Right.
The most successful addiction placement program that I know of, using a scale of when somebody graduates, if they're still sober after 24 months or not, is Jacob's Ladder.
Right.
A program that I wrote.
Right.
Most successful in America, as far as I can tell.
Right.
You guys, the way you scale and look at yours, that once they're out, how long they stay clean and all that.
If they graduate.
Right, if they graduate. One of the most successful current running addiction placement programs probably in the world.
Yeah.
So my thing is this, I agree with you, if the church knows so much better than we do, whichever local body that seems to be, or pastor or preacher or whoever that is, they should already be doing it. And they're almost always doing zero. And then we start doing it, and it gets extremely successful.
Right.
And then they feel the need to absorb us, which we automatically push back from, because we tried to work with you and it didn't work, so we went out on our own and it did work, and now you want us to go back to what didn't work. So it's not that I don't want a relationship with local churches. And then most people are going to bring up and say, okay, the relationship you want with local churches is you want our money. Well, our platform doesn't work that way.
No, we can address that. Exactly, yeah.
And, you know, the reason we worked with you in the beginning was because you weren't set up in a system to where you would have multiple streams of income for your own ministry.
No, and I just so the audience knows. So what had happened was when we met Todd, we were running ourselves ragged. We were using our own money, and we're not wealthy. You know, I think I was making $12 an hour. I think. Oh my gosh, I was. Yeah. Me and my wife was cutting hair in our house, pretty much. I mean, to make ends meet, and we were paying to get addicts into treatment centers. That's how, to faith-based treatment centers. I mean, that was the goal. We couldn't get anyone to help us, and we met the Reverend. And that was, you had already gone through that. You'd already ran your family ragged, and so that's when you said, I'll let you tell the story. So you told Nikki, your wife, one night, your lovely wife, that you were just done trying to depend on church. Because we were the ones in the streets, you said, like working. Go ahead and tell that. How did that happen?
Yeah. Me and my wife and our 4 kids were living in a truck and trailer because I'd sold my house, I'd sold my business, I'd sold our cars, I'd sold everything we owned but our clothes. Even the truck and trailer was borrowed, so if we stopped evangelizing, we basically would just be standing there with our clothes in our hands alongside the highway somewhere. We've been doing it for 4.5 years or so, and
preaching and dragging them across the country somewhere else, right?
I preached in 20-some states in about 3 years, and was preaching 340, 350, 360 times a year, and just my kids just doing homework by a flashlight in the back of the truck down the interstate at night.
Because your heart was in it. I mean, you'd been completely changed, and you wanted to help. But you just,
But the system, and I'm not. It almost sounds like we're bashing the church.
No,
we're not bashing the church.
We're products of the church.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the system of the denominationalism wasn't ever going to change enough or fast enough. You know, a lot of people are getting it.
Right.
Lots of people are getting it through Reckless, lots of people are getting it through HMA, lots of people are getting it through Jacob's Ladder, lots of people are getting it through Marcus Hart, lots of people are getting it. But it's so slow because normally you have the older people that are more set in their ways, that are at the top of each chain of command, and it takes time for these things to happen,
Right.
and sometimes generations for these things to happen. That's what I have to give. That's all I have.
People are dying, and
Yeah.
that's because we're working with the addicts every day.
People are dying and going to hell, literally all around me all day, every day.
Yeah.
So we decided. I told my wife and my kids. I said we're going to move somewhere. We're going to get a house. We're going to establish something. We're going to focus on making this work, and we're going to spread it and share it with everybody.
Right.
We moved to Oklahoma. We tried 1,000 different things, failed at almost every one of them. People ask me all the time, what makes you the expert on outreach in America? Well, it's because I failed more times than anybody
You're
else.
definitely not afraid to fail. I will say that about you. You're not. You're not. It's like I'm dead set. It's not. It's a compliment. Believe me. It's like
I love
you are the evil Knievel of ministry because you're just like, you know, we're wrecked. Let's clean up. Let's do it again. Let's patch it up.
throwing things against the wall and see what sticks
Right.
is wonderful because you learn two things every time. You learn what doesn't stick and you learn what does stick. You make a note to what doesn't stick and you never do it again, and you tell people that will listen, don't do it.
Right.
And then you make a note of what does work and you keep repeating it and you tell everybody this is what works, and then they repeat it, and then
Right.
it starts to multiply. So we started this.
Basically to generate your own income, right? Because you were tired of the...
Well, the gospel worked right. The outreach worked right. The services worked right. What didn't work right is we were running ragged with no money.
Right.
Everything was jimmy rigged and duct taped and barbed wired together and rickety old vans and
Right.
not enough money to go around and feeding meals on pennies. So the problem was finances, finances, finances. I would love to sit here tonight and say, I finally figured out the finances. I got an epiphany, or the Holy Ghost spoke to me, or I sat down on paper and I worked. I am not the finance guru. And God knows I'm not. And this is how God works. It's amazing how God works. I was going to pour myself into the homeless people, the drug addicts, the prostitutes, the pimps, the possessed on the streets of Tulsa until it killed me. That's what I was going to do. I know me very well. I'm with myself almost all day,
Which
every
is
day.
what we were doing when you found us. We were
Yes.
just like, we were about to die.
Exactly. But the only thing I wasn't going to do is stop long enough to figure out how to fund it.
Right.
So the Lord, through an amazing friend of mine, Brother Jimmy Farrell, knew a guy, and he pastored down in Texas, and he knew a guy from Ohio that pastored in Ohio, and somehow they got together, and he said, you guys got to get together, and he put him together with me, and this guy came from Ohio and made an unbelievable statement to me. He said, you got more souls within the reach of your ministry than you know what to do with. You just can't afford them. He said, I have more
Profound.
money. He said, I have more money than I know what to do with, but I couldn't buy a soul.
Can I get his phone number when
I was
this
like,
is over? Or was...
No, you don't want it. He's rougher than I am. So he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll set you up a way to begin financing your own system if you come to Ohio and show us more how to reach souls. So we made a swap. I went up there, had a revival. The Lord moved. The Spirit of God spoke in one of the services, explained to him and his son what to do. They started doing it. Their ministry exploded.
And he taught you how to generate income.
And he came down to Oklahoma and he set up the Saving Place thrift store at the time. And so we're running on this thrift store for a long time. And then the thrift store is there. And then this other man, this amazing friend of mine, Brother Phil, he comes up from Texas. And he says, look, I got an idea for what we need to do with your thrift store. We're going to make it a furniture store, and I'm going to get you all this product. We're going to change it. It's going to be a niche store. It's going to be rustic and Western and farm-style furniture. And I'm like, whatever. Yeah, I was never into the things
Right,
God
you're
was trying
focused
to
on
give
the
me.
gospel. Right.
I'm like, you do whatever. I got to win these souls. And so he keeps, the thrift store guy literally set the thrift store up for me and paid who knows how much money to do it. Just so I wouldn't even try it. I just took it. And then it became this mechanism. And then same thing, this other brother kept giving us furniture, and all this money started coming in, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, I could do something with all this money. Tell me about this furniture thing again. And so, but what I learned through all of that is multiple streams of income, and I wouldn't have time on this video to talk about this. We'll make a video about this later maybe. Multiple streams of income in certain ways and in certain patterns, aggressive and passive,
Right.
and seasonal and non-seasonal, creates and creates an insulated environment for a ministry that can be looked down upon, even hated at times,
Sure.
as ours,
Right.
to where you can do the gospel things you have to do and tell the truth every time and go
Right.
out of your way to do whatever you have to do. And it's the exact opposite. And I can imagine if I was a local pastor of a local church and you were in my town or I was in my town, I could imagine how offensive that would be. That I'm going to do this radical ministry, I'm going to reach all these people you're not reaching and do all these gospel things you're not doing right under your nose, and I don't need anything from you.
I think that's the controversy. I think you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, but with us, it was when this is a system that Todd has designed, the model that Todd has designed, to where, if you guys don't know, the Reckless Saints of Noah we are a nonprofit, but we exist as an S corporation,
Right.
that's a completely different thing. So it's basically what it is we pay taxes on everything.
Yes.
We don't get any kind of tax break. We don't get any of that. We pay tax on salaries, tax on everything we buy, everything we sell, all the used goods, cost of goods, all of that. And the government basically says, okay, if you want to donate to that, you can. We'll call them a nonprofit. And so we have generated our own income through Reckless Apparel and the Reckless Workforce and some other things that you have kind of like modeled after, to where we did. So just like we'll release the financials here tonight, but we did them up to March of this year. So if you go back from January of 2019 to March of this year, we generated a little over $175,000 in income, and less than $16,000 of that was donation based.
Right.
So
In
that
15
means
months.
in 15 months we
Right.
generated. And so what that ends up meaning is, where people look at us, like all the time, we get this constantly, and they're like, well, I think one of the issues is we don't rely on anyone. We don't have to have, because we relied on the people. We thought, you know what, if we can get the truth out there and answer the hard questions about addiction and actually rescue some of these addicted people that need it, the people will get behind that. And they have. They're just like, you guys have blown up, Reckless Apparel and things. And whenever you're an establishment, or whenever you're at a church or you're an organization that depends on people handing you money,
Yes.
a ministry depends on that. Someone has to give you money for that ministry to continue.
Right.
There's just more. I'm not saying they do, but I'm saying there's more areas to compromise, or more opportunities to compromise.
More opportunities. Sure.
Yeah, more opportunities, because when we've been said several times, we'll tell someone we go to year-long treatment centers, we do this, and I've had dads, very wealthy people, say, well, my kid, he can do 4 months. If you'll find him a 4-month treatment center, I'll donate $30,000. And where we can just, I don't need your money. We don't have to have that. We have Reckless. And so I think when Reverend gave us that system, and you kind of modeled that, and we just began pouring into it, we had no idea that it would cause the controversy that it did. And so then people come out of the woodwork and they say, well, you're a nonprofit, you're not doing this right. So they try to attack different areas of your organization.
Sure.
And then you have if you'll talk on that for a minute.
Let me explain the model.
Yeah,
first
go
of
ahead.
all,
Yeah, let's do that.
so people
Get
can
ahead of
even
us.
grasp the model. The model is you are a corporation with a nonprofit status.
Right,
And on paper, there are two different entities.
right,
And so the corporation is allowed to have multiple legs of companies, or DBAs, or streams of income, or whatever you want to call that, however you want to use that.
because we're really getting gutted. We're paying taxes on everything, so the
Yes.
government doesn't care. The government's like, if
Absolutely.
you want to make 175 and give away 150, whatever.
Absolutely.
It's up to you.
So you are a corporation.
Uh-huh.
You have multiple streams of income, multiple legs, DBAs, whatever you want. And that corporation has a 501c3 or a nonprofit status.
Right.
Money that goes into the nonprofit status that is spent specifically on ministry is sheltered if it's spent that way. You can spend money directly out of the corporation on ministry,
Right.
and it's not sheltered, but you can do that too. Either way, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Right.
The way we're set up, let's say that same 15-month period of time, HMA would have generated about $1.8 million, my company. And so I got $1.8 million.
You had to throw that. That's what his company is.
Yeah.
The model, that's where we're headed. But I'm just saying, yeah,
Well,
go
it's
ahead.
been there a lot longer.
1.8 million, but now tell them the greatest part about it.
Okay, so the $1.8 million that my wife and I's company system
Right.
generated in about 15 months, because we're using that 15-month period of
15-month
time.
model, right?
And of that 1.8 million, my wife and I live off of about $59,000, $60,000, $61,000, $62,000, something like that.
Which only ends up being like 6% of your
In
total.
that 15-month period, and then we donate across the nonprofit and spend on our ministries, your ministries, and you get a check from us every month.
do,
So there's
yeah.
lots of other ministries,
Right.
and so we distribute that around the country and around the globe, which makes it come out. This is a real number now. 2018, just January to January 2018, we lived off of 6% of our income, and we gave away 94% of our income. Now, what's very, very interesting to that is 30% of the total number our corporation and our ministries function off of, 30% is donated. So we need to put that 30% directly into that nonprofit and
Right.
spend it just like it's a church ministry or whatever. The other 70% we made. We spent it however we wanted, legally.
Right.
We could keep it.
Right.
Me and my wife could have kept $1.2 million.
That's exactly right. That's exactly, yeah.
2018. But the way we're established, the way it's set up, so the problem I have with some of this is we have figured out a platform
Right.
that works all over the country.
Absolutely.
Works in huge ways, reaches tens of thousands of people on a regular basis. It's proven, it's on paper, you can see the records, we've turned it into the IRS.
It's out there.
It's out there.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna get, and then somebody's gonna try to fight because they don't like the way you flip your
Exactly.
hat build up, or they don't like the way my voice fluctuates, or whatever they don't
Right.
like. So they'll say things like, well, who'd you pay your tithe to? Or
Right.
they'll find little things to pick. Let's use that for example. They say, okay, where do you pay your tithe? I spent 94% of all the money I generated by giving it to ministries all over the country. And now somebody wants to know where I spent my other 10%. And I guarantee you that somebody that wants to know where I spent my other 10%, they might have given 10% to the gospel. They
But-
might have given 10% to the church.
What bothers me though is they're gonna have to overlook the fact that it works. That's what bothers me. So if you don't like the way that we look, you don't like what we do, but I'm saying you've got to jump over a huge leap of the fact that it's working to get
Sure.
to the problem that you have with it, right? And so with this system, and I'll just share this with you guys. So this system he modeled this thing. He wrote it. I just listened to him and I just believed. In fact, I called him the other day when it kind of, when the accountant called, and I didn't even know what had actually happened. I just poured my heart into it. I drug my wife into it as well. She's amazing. Vanessa jumped on board with it. We set the same system up, generated $175,000 roughly, right around there in 15 months. We took in 15 months we took less than $32,000 in salary, my wife and I. So we gave away what went back to the addicted was over $140,000. Now you take that 140,000, 142, whatever it was, 18,000 of that, or no, 16,000 of that, less than, was donated. So there you have over $126,000 that was generated from the sales of Reckless Apparel, from Reckless Workforce, from these other areas of streams of revenue, and just flooded back into the addiction communities. That's like to rescue the addicted from these broken places. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about now.
Which means that you and V lived off of 22% of the total income that you generated and gave back into the ministry. You donated 78% of your total income.
Yeah, so yeah. And see, I didn't know that's what we were doing. So whenever he set us up, whenever he told us, kind of gave us the advice as an S corporation and a nonprofit and all these things, and we were I called him the other day. I thought he was just doing it to protect us because nonprofit law is crazy. You can get into a lot of like jacked up stuff in nonprofit.
Yes.
But the government looks at it like this. If you set it up the way the S corporation and the DV, so that way, the government looks at it like Vanessa and I made $175,000. Now, if we want to give away 142 of it, they think you're crazy. In fact, they'll tell you that, but go ahead. They don't. You pay taxes on it. They don't. Why would anyone do that when you have breaks?
Right.
So, in your guesstimation, you would have what, $30,000-$40,000 in breaks if you went true nonprofit status. I'm saying, like,
Me?
me. Me. In the
I was going to say I would have over $100,000 probably.
so it costs us so much more to do it the way that we're doing it, but it's so much more effective.
Well, that's just it.
It's so much more effective.
It may cost more money on paper,
Right.
but the way that we're able to spin off DBAs and add streams of income and advertise it as the nonprofit status, if you want to go that route, and use the money, you have way more options on how and where and when to use your money, and if
Yes.
you're going to pay taxes on it or not, to help addicts and to transport people around the
Yeah.
country and to pay fees to get addicts into. So
Right.
I don't look at it as we're losing money. I look at it as we're gaining options.
Well, and see, and this is like what really got me was, I think when I drew the line was someone attacked us because I bought a pair of shoes for an addict. He didn't have any shoes, and I bought a pair of shoes for the addict. The pair of shoes I bought him was too expensive. That's what they attacked me on. You bought him this pair of shoes, and you could have,
because everybody knows you're supposed to treat an addict like a dog.
Right, exactly. I'm thinking like, well, I bought him the shoes that he wanted. I didn't buy, you know what I mean? Took him to, and so that's when I just, and so I didn't know that Reverend was kind of setting me up in the system, and so I called him the other day and told him, I was like, oh my gosh, like you Miyagi'd me through this whole system. I said that you like in me, and in Karate Kid where he's teaching to wax on, wax off, but he's really teaching him how to fight. It's like that's what he was just blacklining the system for me. I didn't know it was part of this bigger system. I thought, okay, he's telling me this because he's my mentor and I'm listening to him, and it turns out to be like this, bulletproof system because the way the government looks at it is it's completely independent as far as the nonprofit side of it. I mean, it's not. You're a nonprofit; people can donate to it, but you're not subject to.
As long as the money isn't crossing back out of, and this is the key. The key, if we generate the money, we can spend it. I mean, that just is what it is. And what a lot of people are misunderstanding is because you make $100,000 a year and you spend $110,000 a year, you can't possibly grasp how I can make $100,000 a year and only spend $20,000 a year and give away the other 80. That is selflessness. That is Christianity. That is the pureness of the gospel. That's the book of Acts again, where they're selling all of their things and giving it back to the ministry. So that's not my fault. That's not my problem. But what's going on here, I can make as much money as I need to, spend it on as many things as possible. There's an exact reason why we generate 70% of all of our ministry income and work to have the other 30% donated, because we don't want to leave the church out. We don't want the church not to get their blessings. We don't want the saints and the Christians not to give when the Bible tells them to give. We don't want to cut off something that God told them to do. So there's a reason for all of that. But the only factor is, if you give money to HMA or to Reckless, you're giving it to the nonprofit, and it has to be spent directly on ministry, and it doesn't pay taxes. All the money we generate, we take a little, we spend a lot. That's the program. That's how it works. It's all on us. We're going to be responsible to God for that. These are our companies.
Right.
These are our businesses, and we decided to give almost all of it away. So the only thing the IRS cares about, and I've got multiple accountants, the only thing the IRS cares about is that you're not taking, you take money out of the company and put it into the nonprofit. You can spend money out of the nonprofit on ministry. You can spend money out of the company on ministry. Money can move all around. There's one way money cannot move. It cannot move out of the nonprofit into the company. That's a no-no. As long as you don't do that, this thing works amazing.
It does, and that's a system that you designed. So
Accidentally, yes.
accidentally, it's like, so we followed that. Failure built that system. I'll tell you that from the bottom of my heart. And we're not perfect. We're still learning, but it's just amazing what God is doing. So we're gonna get some questions. You guys emailed us some questions, and we're gonna keep this moving. You guys were awesome. We have a whole. I'm sorry I had to trim it to where we could answer like 7, 8. We'll get to as many as we can. There was a bunch that you guys submitted because you guys rock. But let's get into the questions. One of the platforms here at Reckless is we tell you the hard truth about addiction, okay? And there's plenty of people telling you exactly what you don't need to hear, but maybe it's softer to your ears. And in the meantime, people are dying. So we just take this hardline position of, I'm going to be completely open and honest with you about addiction, and hopefully we're going to help some people along the way. That's the only way to help someone is the truth. So here we go. So I'm going to ask. We're going to read the question and we'll talk about it. Barbara S. I'm not going to use the last name, but Barbara emailed me this one. It says, I have a nephew. He lives with us after his mother kicked him out a few months ago. He's 26. He's had some issues with addiction, and he can't seem to find work. When he does, he can't seem to keep it. It seems all he's interested in doing lately is playing video games. I've tried to help him, got him a car, let him live with us, and now I'm at my end with it. I'm not sure how to help him or what to do next. Any advice you could give would be greatly appreciated. He's always been the sweetest kid. That's the question from Barbara. So if I understand the question right, Barbara, you kind of want to know where to go with your nephew that you've got in your house that is, you believe is addicted, which, in my opinion, when you believe he is, he is. That's sort of something that never... A guy asked me that the other day, he said, I don't think my kid's addicted, but if you think he is, then I'll listen to you. And I said, well, he probably is. And he goes, how did you know that? I was like, because my phone rang. So I don't... Why would you... You know what I mean? Like, why go through the process of calling me if that's...
Right.
So, let's talk about this. So she's got a nephew, and we deal with this situation all the time. It's not uncommon. This is generally what we do.
I get this call every day.
Exactly. This is 9 times a day. This is the question
This
that comes
is
up.
textbook.
This
right?
is. So we're going to give you the only answer. There is only one answer to this, okay? And if it hurts, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off really quick, and we're going to hopefully walk you through that part of it. Do you want to take this one, and I'll kind of back you up? Or oh, there you go. Yeah.
Barbara, this is a little booklet, and Brother Jordan and his wife, Vanessa, and myself wrote it. I've written dozens of these little booklets about different topics. This is one of the most powerful ones. It's called A Quick Guide to Dealing with Addicted Loved Ones. You can get this little booklet, I think, for $10
It's on your website.
on my website.
It's on your website. Yeah, we'll link that down.
HMAministries.com. We'll put a link.
And everything that we're telling you is this is a manual for. So it's not. We've already written this. It's not. Yeah.
HMAministries.com. Go to shop and go down to booklets and go get a quick guide to dealing with addicted loved ones. This will be the answer to all of this whole question. But I love you. I don't know you, but I love everybody because Christ puts love for everybody in me. But because I
genuinely
love
care
you,
about the nephew.
I love your
Yeah,
nephew.
absolutely.
I love everybody involved, and it may not sound like it for a minute, but the truth of the matter is, you wrote us the textbook paragraph to tell us that you are a professional enabler. This paragraph tells me I've dealt with tens of thousands of addicts and their families. I counsel them all over the United States, have for almost 2.5 decades. This paragraph tells me, beyond the shadow of a doubt, you are a professional enabler. And when you stop enabling him, your nephew, that is the day that he gets his first best chance to get off drugs. This little booklet teaches you how to stop being an enabler. The way I know you're an enabler, why did he get kicked out of his parents' house? Why is he still living with you at 26? Why can't he get a job in this economy? Why did you buy him a car? Why? I mean, just on and on and on and on and on and on and on. He's a professional addict and a professional user of people. And you're a professional enabler, so you're allowed to be used very easily. You two are poison for each other until one of you gets strong. And the addict isn't going to get strong. You need to get strong. When you get strong, when you get the bullets in your gun and the tools in your tool belt that you need, that's in this book that I don't have time, I don't have a half an hour to teach them all to you right now. You love your nephew. It's very obvious you love your nephew. Now figure out how to love him in a way that's going to help him. Get the book, read it, believe it, as hard as it is, as hard as your flesh is going to fight against you. He needs to be cut off. That's the bottom line. When he gets cut off by somebody that really loves him, that's his first day at a real chance of getting clean.
And in Barbara, to piggyback, we wrote the book. But, have the courage to be hated. I say that all the time, but there is no such thing. One of the things that Todd, Reverend, has said millions of times over, and I just get this into your soul, guys. There is no such thing as tough love. It does not exist. We always give the same platform, and someone says, "Well, I'm not a fan of that tough love. I can't cut them off." Tough love, there's only love. And like it's like my son Jackson, I use it this way. We live outside of town on kind of a dangerous road, and we're playing outside. I'm always with him. And if he gets too close to the road, if I tell him he's not listening, I'm gonna discipline him. I'm gonna whip him if he's not listening to me about getting too close to the road. Not because I hate him,
No.
Because I love him.
Exactly.
Because I love him.
Because you want him around.
That's exactly right. He can be as mad, and believe me, you guys have seen a 1.5-year-old. They get angry, right? I mean, he'll get mad for 20 minutes, right? But in the end, kid, I'm not hurting you because I'm sadistic. I'm not cutting you off because I'm some kind of a sadist. I'm doing this because, in the end, I care about you. And if it means you hating me, that's fine for a minute, right? And I'll even say this in my own life. My father, Tommy Parker, and my brother, Tommy Parker Jr., or however you want to say it, modeled this out. I was not looking for treatment. I did not want treatment. The only problem I had with drugs, I couldn't get enough of them. That was my only issue. I didn't, So I got thrown in treatment, and they kind of made sure I stayed there. I stayed 15 months, 4 months. God got a hold of me with the gospel, changed everything. But it was because I cursed them for 4 straight months. I mean, it was evil. The stuff that I would say about them and just how mad I was. Have the courage to go through that. Have the courage to do that. I mean, that's the only way out.
Have the love to do it.
That's exactly right. The love to do it. And let's real quickly. We've seen it go the other way. Sometimes the parents cut them off, and the addict overdoses, or the addict commits suicide.
Sure.
We hate it. It happens, right? Let's address that because we're not dodging anything. We're not telling you this is a foolproof plan to save your kid's life. In fact, I think it was you that said, when I was counseling someone, and you kind of jumped in because a lady called and said, "You got to help me. My son is killing himself."
Yeah.
And that was her words. My son is killing himself. And I'm on the phone, and I'm telling her, okay, you got to cut him off. We're telling you everything we're telling you, Barbara. He's 30-something years old, using in the bottom of their house. She found needles, all this stuff. Had been for years. Todd this is how we're working through it. I say the same thing. You got to cut him off. You got to do this. I'm being real firm with her. And she says, okay, I will. She calls back, says, okay, I tried to, but he said he would kill himself if I did that.
Right.
And the Reverend, just genius in his simplicity, said, you started this conversation with, you need to help me, my son is killing himself.
Right.
So it's the way we look at it. We're not saying it's foolproof. It's, what did you say, that you have about 1,000 ways to die?
Yeah.
If no one stops you. Let's take away about half of those, and we pray and we trust God to do what God does.
What happens with an addict is no addict gets help until they hit rock bottom.
Absolutely.
Every addict gets help at rock bottom, or they don't get help. As long as they have options,
They won't choose treatment.
there's never going to be help.
No.
So when we're enabling them, we're giving them options. Give me some gas money, buy me a car, let me stay in your basement, give me some food, whatever it takes to give me other options so I don't hit rock bottom. And rock bottom is always way lower than we think. Every time somebody calls me and says, I think they're at rock bottom, I say, no, they're not, let's talk about it. Because rock bottom is way down there. But once they get there, they have no other choice, they take the help. It always pops into our mind, and sometimes I think the devil is right there to make sure it gets in there, that if you do this, what if they overdose? What if they commit suicide? What if they get killed in a drug deal or whatever? All we're saying is, and reference back what he was talking about, let's say your nephew has 1,000 different ways that he could die in the next 12 months, okay? And as long as you continue to enable him, he's going to get all 1,000 chances to die.
Right.
If you cut him off, you're going to take away maybe 600, let's say 700 of those chances, because you're going to shorten the span of time that he hurries up and gets to rock bottom. So you're going to take away 700 out of the 1,000 chances that he could die. So could he still die? Yes, 300 times. But you took away 700. You're not God. I'm not God. No. We can't take away everything. But we can help them get there faster, which shortens the amount of time they're out there on drugs, which shortens the amount of chances that they could die.
And again, in this question here, Barbara, whatever he does is completely and 100% his choice. Mm-hmm. That's what you have to remember. That's what you have to remember, okay?
And write this on the wall. There is no such thing as tough love. This is the way we put it in my office. What we call tough love, God calls love. What we call tough love, God calls love.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on to the next one. I hope we answered your question, Barbara. Thank you for that email. How do you, this is from Lyle, how do you get someone to admit they have an addiction problem?
You want that?
I'll take it. I can take this one. This is another one. You don't, unless they're ready. So it's not something that you can force them into. It's not something that you can manipulate your way to get them to admit it. I've seen people in serious amounts of denial, the lies, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and lying go together. In fact, they're the best. When I was in addiction, I would lie nonstop, any and always, right? And so don't focus so much on getting someone to admit they have a problem, because that turns it into I'm right and you're wrong. I need you to admit you're wrong to prove that I'm right. The problem with that is that you miss the love of it. That you miss the fact that that's a person that is dying and that is in incredible amounts of pain. Nobody is a drug addict because they want to be. I mean, deep down, that's not something that a human being the levels that drug addicts stoop to every day that I have stooped to in my addiction, no rational thinking human being would ever want to be there, right? When you're a little girl or a little boy growing up, you don't dream about being that.
Right.
That's not the way your mind works.
Right.
And so you don't want to focus on that. I think it was Ravi Zacharias that said, Christ did not come to make wrong people right, he came to make dead people live. And that's, so you want to focus on in these times of not trying to prove that person that he is a drug addict and getting him to admit it, Lyle. You want to prove that in those moments that even the love of Christ, that even Christ in you can love that person in the midst of it, and that love is what shows them the truth.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds really corny and really but it's not. And so if in my life, I look back at my life and what broke it open for me, and when that happened, the people that treated me with respect, the people that loved me, the people that never stood up for my lifestyle, not condoning what I did,
Right.
but being there willing to help when I needed it, I think is what is the difference. So, and he's gonna tell you something awesome, probably way better than just trash my advice. But my advice to you is, don't look at it as try to get him to admit he's an addict, because that will never happen outside of. It takes a monumental thing to get there. So just focus on trying to get that person and being there to help when you can. I think that would be the biggest.
Well, and that's perfect advice, because if they're not going to admit it, but whether they admit it or not has nothing to do with helping them. Nothing.
Right.
And my approach when I'm counseling these people and when I'm working with them, when I'm teaching their families how to work with them, is instead of saying, I know you're an addict, why don't you admit you're an addict? If you admit you're an addict, then I can help. Instead of going down that road, I am absolutely all cards on the table all day, every day. I used to go to drug programs, and they would like talk to an addict for a little while and see what they can get out of him, and then they would go back in the back room and get away from him and say, I think he's this, and I think he's doing this, and I think maybe we should
Defeats the purpose, yeah.
Everything I say about an addict, I say to their face, if at all possible.
Transparency.
Transparency is everything. So what I do is I approach an addict and I say, I need you to understand, I feel like you're on drugs. You're going to tell me that you're not, which is exactly what somebody on drugs would say, so that doesn't do me any good. So I need you to understand from this moment forward, I'm going to love you, I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to help you, I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to always approach you while we're in this realm of what we're doing right now as if I think you're on drugs. So if you ask to borrow my truck to run uptown, I'm going to say, no, you don't have to ask me why. It's because I feel like you're on drugs. Now, no matter what your answer is, no matter what your response is, it doesn't change how I feel, so it's not going to change my approach. Over time, you may prove me wrong, or over time, it may prove that I'm right, but I'm going to treat you this way as long as I believe it. And there's nothing, what are you going to say? Are you going to say, no, you don't believe that? Yeah, I do. Or you're going to say, no, I'm not. And I'm going to say, that's what I would expect you to say. You tell the truth. The truth is, this is what I think.
Yeah, we got to stop trying to outsmart the truth. Let the truth have its day. Like, just yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is a...
By the way, Lyle, all of that's in the book.
There you go, Lyle.
A quick guide to dealing with addicted loved ones at hmaministries.com. Everything we're saying is in these booklets, guys.
It is. It absolutely. It's not. We don't come up with new stuff. It's a formula that we follow every time. It's the same thing. We're gonna get to this one. This is from just signed R was the only initial, so we don't need the name. But is there a way to detox at home? I'm coming off pills, mostly Oxy, which would be OxyContin and Dilaudid. I've been on them off and on for 2 years now. I want to be clean. I just can't seem to get past the hardcore detox. Help me, please. You wanna? It's up to you.
Or you need to surrender. You need to give up. You're an addict. You know you're an addict. And you're trying to find the cheapest, easiest, simplest way to get clean. Now that
least humiliating, I think, is what he's...
That's great.
Like, you're trying to find the least humiliating way, and let me just... Man, if we can just cut through that, get ready for that. If
an addict has to hit rock bottom. Yeah. At rock bottom, you have to surrender. Mm-hmm. During the surrender process, you lose and break your selfishness in Christ, hopefully, and you become a selfless individual instead of a selfish individual, and then the addiction process doesn't have a hold on you. There's no cheap way. There's no easy way. Mm-hmm. Once you're an addict, it costs everybody the same thing to leave addiction, and that price is never discounted. It's never on sale, and the price is always the same. The price is surrender. He did it, I did it, we all did it. You're going to have to do it. You're not there yet, probably, because of the way you wrote this, but maybe you're getting there. Do whatever you got to do to hurry up and get there. Surrender. Give up. Be the drug addict that everybody thinks of. Who cares?
Yeah, that's...
Get your life back. Who cares what anybody thinks about you? Just make sure you don't go to hell. Who cares what anybody thinks about you? Just make sure you don't die on the streets. Who cares what anybody thinks about... I mean, we're sitting right here. I'm 24 and a half years clean. How,
6. This is my 6 year clean.
6 years clean. You're going to be just as good or better than we are someday, and you're going to help so many people.
Absolutely.
Just surrender. Just get there.
Perfect way to put it. Brother, call, reach out to somebody. We can walk you through everything that you need. All right, it's not safe doing it. If you're on Dilaudid and Oxy, the Dilaudid is what scares me. I mean, not it's all scary, but Dilaudid points to a needle. If I'm being honest,
Right.
Trying to detox from that on your own with no way to monitor your own blood pressure, things like it's just you're in a dangerous spot, brother, sister, whoever you are. Call Reckless Saints of Nowhere. I'd be more than willing to talk with you and just know I was in the exact same position. Like so, it's freedom. It's freedom through suffering, not freedom in absence of suffering. That's the difference. You don't. If someone's telling you anything differently than that when it comes to getting off drugs, they're selling you something. I mean, they're flat out lying to you, and we're not. This is the hard truth. So. I love you. I'll be praying for you.
Yes.
You call anytime. All right. I mean that. I wanted to get to this one. This one's heartbreaking to me. But what do you think about depression medication? I have severe anxiety, and I've been on meds for it and depression for almost 12 years. The church I grew up in has said before I should not take the medicine and trust God for healing. My family pressures me and says that I'm not living like I should if I'm taking these pills. Should I not take it? Is it wrong to take meds for depression? According to God, I mean. Robin S. This is a pet peeve. This drives me insane. We deal with this all the time. Let me just, Robin, first of all, I'm sorry that you're dealing with what you're dealing with. I'm sorry that you have these issues. I'm going to be as real as I possibly can with you, and then Reverend's he's tackled this issue several times, I think, in the past. There's absolutely nothing wrong with medication. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I am not against medication. I'm against the abuse of medication or the overconsumption of medication or the misdiagnosis of whatever. If you're dealing with depression I am not telling everyone to get off medication. That is not the platform of Reckless. But I will tell you this much. What your family's doing and your church telling you that depression medication that you should not take is outside of the scope, I think, of what their profession is. I mean, to tell you that without knowing some more things that are there, just in and of itself that you take depression medication, that's insane that would be wrong or according to God. Then and I don't know how you feel about this, but that, to me, it's like, then we're picking and choosing what medicine we're allowed to take based on, so I can take Tylenol, but I can't take this for depression. I mean, there are legitimate things that go on, chemical imbalances, things that go on in someone's head, right? Brain, chemistry, things like this, that those medicines... And it's not, I don't know if I've struggled with depression. I've never taken anything for it, but that's something I've definitely struggled with it. So it's not, there just needs to be a healthy fighting of that, I think. Like if I heard it said one time, I believe depression is real, I believe anxiety is real, but if you're not getting 8 hours of sleep at night, plenty of sunlight, exercise, and a good diet, then you don't give yourself a fighting chance to do any of what you're trying to accomplish. So I would say, don't get off the medication without a doctor or someone, I'm not a doctor, I'm not telling you that. But definitely get some healthy habits in your life if that's not already where you're going. And then just I'm going to throw it over to Todd because he's going to really, rock your world. And then stop caring what your parents, if you're over the age of 18, don't let that.
You had to throw that caveat in there.
I had to. Don't let that, right? I mean, that's, Anyway, go ahead, River. You're going to answer this question a lot better than I can.
I could answer this question for about 4 hours. I'm not going to.
Okay, can you try to...
Let me do this. I have a ministry platform called Text to Talk to Todd.
Boom.
Text to Talk to Todd. What you do is you text your name and the word appointment to 918-760-1048. Text your name and the word appointment to 918-760-1048. And what we will do is we'll schedule a time that matches your schedule and my schedule, and we'll do like a video conference or something, or like just phone to phone, whatever we need to do to make that work. To where I can see your facial expressions and hear the tones in your voices and ask you some elongated questions and get some longer answers and some shorter answers. And because this is very complex. There's a lot of ways to talk about this. Is it cultic? Is it rational? Is it, are you on multiple? Because the psychiatric world is a disaster. They want you to take this med, and if it doesn't work, then they'll add this med. If it doesn't work, they'll add this med. If it doesn't work, they'll add this med. Then by the time you come to me and I'm trying to counsel you, you're on 11 different medications, and you're all messed up.
Which we do see that. It does happen.
You're addicted to 9 of them. It could be a disaster. The church is afraid of things like that.
Right.
If the church is just saying, point blank, they don't know your background, they don't know that you're on multiple meds, they don't know that your psychiatric history is all messed up. If the church's doctrine is, if you take medicine, you're wrong. If you take medicine, you're not a Christian. If you take medicine, you're going to hell. That's a cult. That's not a church. And I'm telling you this from the standpoint, let me throw this out there, okay? I run multiple companies, some huge companies, multiple, dozens of ministries. I pastor pastors, and I take lithium because I'm diagnosed bipolar, and I have huge, horrible chemical imbalances in my brain that I battle, rages and depressions, and I have for almost 30 years. So I'm very leery of psychiatric medicinal treatments, but I'm also on one. But the one that I'm on is actually a natural resource and not a man-made medication. So there's lots of shadows and gray areas, religious, medical, personal, all of this. This is too complicated to just go, bam, here's the answer. But text to talk to Todd. Text your name and the word appointment, 918-760-1048, and I can get into the history of some of this, and I think we can help you pretty quickly.
So short answer, is it wrong to take meds for depression according to God? I mean, no. It's not. I mean, no, please text Talk to Todd because he can definitely get into that. We're going to take one more question, so let's make it, here we go. Well, we had 2 more that we'll read real quick. How do you stay sober? This is from Tyler. He says, how do you stay sober? Off and on for me over the last 5 years, but I can't seem to make it stick. I've tried working out, yoga, but it always fades and I'm back at the dope house. Please help, Tyler. How do you stay? Tyler, I feel for you trying, yoga to stay sober. I mean, you're reaching. I mean, like you're trying, like, you know what I mean? So, I'll put it there. The world or the outside world always says the problem with addiction is make yourself better. You need to be a better version of yourself to overcome the problems that you have. That is absolutely false. It's contrary to everything in Scripture. The only way you're going to get better is from the inside out. You're not ever going to get better by, I need 10-minute abs or 5-minute abs, and then if I just get a better job, then people are going to like me. And then that's what you're going down. I had a friend that he ended up overdosing, so it's kind of a sad story. But he told me, he's like, man, the last time I was sober for like 2 years, he relapsed. He called me, how do I get back to where I was sober for 2 years? And I was able to share with him, brother, you were sober for 2 years, but you worked out like 6 hours a day. That's mental. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm saying you just replaced one addiction with another, one that's socially acceptable. Right. That's all that is. Okay. And the true thing lies within the fact that your soul or your spirit is restless. Is exactly what it is. So you're trying to fill yourself with cheap, trinkety garbage that was never meant to fill that void. And I think it's Augustine that said, our souls are restless until they find rest in Him. And so that's your problem, my man, is more than likely a spiritual one, in the sense that you don't like who you are, and you're struggling with that, and it comes out as you're going to try to improve yourself, and that's why you took, weightlifting, the working out, you poured yourself into that, yoga, you poured yourself into that, which that's like, dude, props right there, because that's insane, right? I mean, like, you tried that, and then you're back at the dope house. It's because you don't have it in you to overcome that. You don't. You and I, if left to myself, I'll go right back to it. If God's hand were to come off of me, and I rely on my own strength today to beat addiction, I go back to what I conquered 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, that's just the truth of it. So that's my answer to that, is that, man, we're going to get you hooked up with some people that can pour the Word of God into your life, brother.
I want to say this carefully. I agree with 90% of what Brother Jordan just said, and I'll explain that. All of these things you're trying are in yourself, and yourself is what's wrong. We're human flesh. We're of the fallen nature. We take on the sins of Adam. We're not going to be able to be perfected outside of the blood of Calvary. So, in that sense, Brother Jordan is absolutely correct. The way to get sober and stay sober is to get under the blood and stay under the blood. To get saved and stay saved. It is a spiritual factor. The reason I held out that other 10% is because I hear something in what you're asking here that may or may not be going on, but unless you are self-medicating with alcohol, it's very, very possible in your situation that what you have a problem, mental, emotional, chemical problem, and you're medicating that problem with alcohol. And then you realize you're alcoholic, or you're taking in too much alcohol or whatever, and it's a bad thing and it's messing up your life. So you try to get off of alcohol or get off of drugs or get off of whatever you try to get off of, and then that leaves you with that problem that you have, and you can't handle that problem. And so if it's just your flesh, your sinful nature, which is it anyway, one way or the other, then you surrender to Christ, and you will be amazed at how wonderful and simple the life is in God, and how He gives you the power to be something you're not, and then you don't have to continue to fight those battles all day and half of every night. But if it's a self-medication, you have to deal with whatever the real problem is after the alcohol and the drugs are gone. And you could get saved, and Christ could heal you. You could be delivered of a mental, emotional, chemical problem, whatever. That could all be worked out just through salvation. It happens all the time. But it's also a possibility you could surrender your life to Christ and still have a chemical imbalance, or surrender your life to Christ and still have an emotional instability or something. And then you need counseling. And preferably not secular counseling.
Right.
Secular counseling is a disaster right now. And so, again, I could point you back to some of the information earlier, the text to talk to Todd, or call the Reckless Saints number, and if we can plug you in spiritually, and we can also, over time, determine some of those other factors, if even necessary.
It's a good answer. All right, so the last question here, and this is from Jessica. I'm sorry, we only have time for one more, so we're going to answer this one. Another one was about burnout. We're not going to answer that one.
What was it?
It was about just what steps do you take to prevent burnout in your life and in your ministry? And
wait. You give me this. You know why he won't answer that one? Because he doesn't know how to do it.
It's not that I don't know. I know the answer. I'm just like,
No. The reason he doesn't want to ask this question is because he knows the answer opposes his lifestyle. That's what it is. Wait, hold on a second. What steps do you take?
Whose show is this? What just happened?
What steps do you take to prevent burnout on your life/ministry? And have you seen an increase in the amount of people willing to go to treatment since you started Reckless? Now you can answer the have you seen an increase in the amount of people willing to go to treatment since you started Reckless?
I can.
And then I'll answer the steps to burnout.
Okay, thank you. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
It's your show. I'm just, all right. So, have I seen, yeah, I have. It's, to answer that question, have we seen an uptick in people that are willing to go to treatment? Yeah, we've changed the narrative kind of in our local community and in our state a lot, in the states that we're active in those communities. Now people, we're able to, by the grace of God, we created a system that if someone is addicted to drugs, it's either because they want to be or because they've never heard of the Reckless Saints, because there is no reason outside of that. You don't have insurance, you don't need it. You don't have money, that's okay, you don't need it. Well, I can't get there, I don't have a car. You don't need one. I mean, we've literally taken every obstacle away.
Right.
And so when it comes to, once we have that system and that's in place in a community, we show up in a community, if you want us to come to your community, call us, we'll work that out. And we put that in place, and your pastors, your elders, your deacons, they don't really know how to deal with addiction. You're not supposed to. That's okay. That's what we do. You guys do what you do. We do what we do. When you can say, look, I don't know what you're going through, addict, but here's the deal. I know some people who can help you. Call this number. We will literally move mountains to get them into treatment. So whenever that is the primary narrative in a community, it always works. It always continually works. We're slowly changing the way we look at addiction, not fast enough, in my opinion.
Right.
People are still dying, and they're still... The problem in America is they think that they're the exception and not the rule. They don't think they're the rule. So to get sober on your own, that's why the question a while ago from that gentleman was Tyler was so brutal, because it's like he keeps going back to the dope house and he's trying to get help without admitting he's an addict. And so that's less than 4%, 3% of people ever get sober on their own without going through some sort of treatment process. So he's banking on the fact that he can do it whenever statistically science would tell us that he's 97% going to fail. And fail, in case you guys, that means die in our language. It's not fail like, oh, I messed up, let me try again. 97% of the times he will end up in prison or he will die. And so he's willing to risk his life on a 3% chance that maybe he's the exception. That's the issue. You have to change the way the world looks at addiction, and that's what we're slowly trying to do. So yes, we've seen a huge, we did over 900 something addicts placed last year alone, and jumped off to a huge one this year, and we'll double that or triple it. So we are, to answer your question. And now on to the...
Wait, before I go to this, I gotta correct something you just said. You just made me mad.
What did I say?
You literally just said that a pastor doesn't know how to deal with addicts.
I'm sorry.
Wait. You said a pastor doesn't know how to deal with addicts, and you said, that's okay, that's not your job, you're not supposed to know how. Are you kidding me?
No. I don't mean biblical pastor. I mean like the pastors in most churches. I know that sounds even more like rough.
Okay, but a pastor should know how to deal with addicts. That is your job.
Yeah, why do they call? But most of them call us. And I just walked in there.
They don't know how to deal with it, or they don't want to deal with it, but it is their job.
It is their job. It absolutely is. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Now,
the Todd Sloggett Show, ladies and gentlemen.
The rest of this, what steps do you take to prevent burnout on your life and ministry?
This is our last question, then we're going to end for tonight. So
the only reason I get to talk about this is because I'm actually trying. But us two right here at this table are the worst of the worst of the worst. I am a ministryaholic, I'm a peopleaholic, I'm a workaholic, literally I say this a dozen times a day seems like to somebody. What you all call rest, I call pain. I don't, sitting there with your feet up, watching the breeze go by, whatever. I hate that. That drives me insane. I've got to be changing the world. I've got to be doing something. I've got to be fixing, functioning, building, creating, changing something. And Jordan's the same way. But most people I know that are that way brag about it in the sense that I only slept 3 hours last night, and I haven't eaten in 2 days, and I'm still working like a dog, and I'm this.
That sounds like me.
It does sound like me. And it's wrong. It is wrong to brag about something that's unbiblical. It is wrong to brag about something that's ungodly. Just like, I'm sorry, forgive me. I was at a camp meeting one time.
It's your show.
Had a 450-pound preacher up there, and he literally is bragging about how he ate 17 hot dogs for lunch, and he's a real man and all that. That is ridiculous. Bragging about things that are unbiblical is sinful. It's wrong. Don't teach children, don't teach a generation, don't teach your peers that something that's ungodly is cool. It's not cool to eat 17 hot dogs in one sitting. It's not. It's gluttonous. And gluttony is a sin according to the Bible. It is not cool to get 2 or 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night and not eat for 2 days and work 20 hours straight in the same 2-day period. It's not cool. Sometimes we have to. Sometimes it's in us and we're driven to do that, but that doesn't mean it's okay or that it's right. And it especially doesn't mean we should try to teach that to somebody else, try to convince somebody else to be like us. Okay? What is cool is to figure out what is biblical and what is Christian and Christ-like and what is taught in the scriptures, and try our best to mold ourselves closer and closer and closer to what's biblical, so that everybody has people following them. Everybody has people watching them. Everybody has disciples, whether you know it or not, or like it or not. You need to mold your life closer and closer and closer to Scripture, closer and closer and closer to Christ, so that whoever your disciples are, have a better and better and better example. Now I'm playing with my phone because I'm going to read you something. I had 2 young ministers in my office this week, and I read them this list. I don't sleep good, neither does Jordan. I don't eat good, neither does Jordan. My life doesn't revolve around family time and downtime, neither does Jordan's. But I'm smart enough to know that I've got to do something about that, because the bigger and bigger and bigger we get,
Right.
the more and more and more people are going to try to model after me. And I can't have them modeling after Todd.
Right.
I have to have them modeling after God.
And it is something we constantly work on. It's something that
It is. And we are. This is probably drives some of you crazy right here to even think about this. And nobody has to be this radical. Maybe him. But normally you wouldn't have to be this radical. This is it's called Life List. It's on my phone. It's on my notes. It's a list of everything that I try to do in a regular day. And the reason it's on the list is because I'm not good at it. I don't put things on the list that I'm good at, because I'm going to do them anyway. These are the things I have to work on every day. And my list is very specific, and it's way too specific and more specific than most people's ever should be. But this is how I try to work on these things. And number one is to get the right amount of sleep, not too much, not too little. Make sure I pray an hour every day. Make sure I read a minimum of 3 chapters of the Bible every day. Make sure I'm drinking my shakes and taking my vitamins. Making sure I'm getting regular cardio and muscular workouts. Make sure that I'm eating higher protein and healthier than what I naturally desire. Think about what you put in your mouth. Don't just put stuff in your mouth. Study books and producing sermons. Create the best company and system that you can. Stay in your lane and keep your mouth shut as much as possible. Listen more than you speak. I'm working on that one. Stay off of the phone and Facebook in the presence of your wife and children. Pay attention to them. Do your business in your office. Don't take it everywhere you go. Do things right the first time. It'll save time. Stop and smell a few roses and give a few away too. Deal with what you have. You don't need more. Consolidate and delegate. Stop spreading out. Now it's going to get real personal, but I want you to hear this. No cheap shots or cheap humor. Be genuine and compassionate. Build your family and your church and others up. Contact a minister or a ministry from your ministry list every day and encourage them. Make 2 videos a week about promoting your store. Make a podcast a week about spreading ministry. Be sensitive and check by the slightest moving of the Spirit over your conscience. Listen to your conscience over yourself. Stop making things about you. Let others be the center of attention too. Stop sounding like you're just here to fight the church. Brand new one, watch your cholesterol. I'm 48 now. And it goes on and on and on. But I'm not going to go through the whole thing. That's me trying to get my flesh to look more like Christ. So how do we do it? We work on it. How do we do it? We make it happen. How do we do it? We find it in Scripture and we force ourselves to be applied.
Right. Yeah, so thank you for that, Amanda.
You just rocked Jordan's whole
Way to go, Amanda. I wasn't even going to read that one.
From now on.
No, it's something that we do work on. We're going to close it out here, but thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. We hope we've been incredibly transparent with you about your addiction issues, anything that you have a question about. Email us, contact us, share. We'll be back next week with another guest, so we'll be sharing with that. I'm trying to confirm that right now, so I'm not trying to get too excited about it. But the Reverend Todd Sloggett of HMA Ministries, you guys give him, all the love that you can. Share his page. He's a public figure. Go. The book, A Quick Guide to Dealing with Addicted Loved Ones, is on his website, hmaministries.com, right?
Yes, sir.
Along with a ton of other, any issue you guys address at some point, whether it's affair proofing your marriage is really good. That was another one that. So yes, go there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Reckless Saints Hope Show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
God bless you.